I want to tell you the part of retirement I wasn't ready for. Not the Medicare paperwork, not the savings questions, not the fixed income talk, not the mortgage because Barbara and I had handled that, not the adult children asking if we were really going to slow down this time. It was the quiet. That sounds simple, maybe even nice. It wasn't. Look, I built a life around movement, calls, flights, deals, problems, people needing an answer before lunch, people needing me to get on a plane by dinner. Then one day the thing I built didn't need me the same way. That was the point. That was the plan. And still, when it happened, I felt like a man standing outside his own house with the key in his hand, not sure if he still lived there. Barbara saw it before I did. She usually does. I thought I was resting. She thought I was disappearing. Everything looked good from the outside. We had the money. We had the house in Florida. We had enough saved. We weren't checking the grocery bill. The business was running. The kids were fine. Nothing was wrong. That's what made it harder to admit. Because when nothing is wrong, you start wondering why you feel so strange sitting in the middle of everything you said you wanted. You wake up and nobody is waiting for your call. And that feels empty. Not good weird, just weird. I don't say that for sympathy. I've been broke, real broke. I know what actual pressure feels like. 31 years old, negative in the account, Barbara working while I tried to pretend I had a plan. This was different. This was sitting in a very comfortable chair and realizing comfort doesn't know what to do with a man who only understands motion. The exact fear was simple. I was afraid I had spent 30 years becoming useful and then retired into a life where my usefulness had no place to go. That's an ugly sentence, but it's the cleanest one I have, because people talk about retirement like it's a finish line, the last bill paid, the last alarm clock, the first morning with nowhere to be. They don't talk about the second morning, or the sixth, or the morning when you make coffee, open the same cabinet 3 times, walk outside, check your phone, and realize you're waiting for a problem to arrive. I did that for months. Barbara would say I did it longer. She'd be right. I'm not going to give you a 5-step system. I'm just going to tell you what happened and what we figured out. Some of it is still unfinished. Maybe that's the only honest way to talk about this. We were on I-95, coming back from Rachel's house. This was maybe 8 months after I had stepped back from day-to-day operations. Rachel had made dinner. Mark grilled something. Eli was running around the yard with a plastic sword. Maya was arguing with everybody, which is how I know she's related to me. It should have been a good night. It was a good night. And still, in the car, I was quiet. Barbara was looking out the window. She didn't turn toward me. She just said, "You don't actually like being retired, do you?" I laughed. That was my first mistake. Men laugh when they don't want to answer. I said, "What are you talking about? Of course I like it." She said, "Alan, just my name." That was worse than a whole speech. We passed one of those big green highway signs. Fort Lauderdale, Miami, exits, all that. I remember the light from the dashboard on her hands. She said, "You're home more, but you're not here more." That one stayed with me, because she was right. I was physically in the house. I was sitting at breakfast. I was walking around the property. I was going to lunch with people who had nothing to say and said it for 90 minutes. But I wasn't there. Part of me was still waiting for the old life to call and tell me there had been a mistake. I had built the business so it could run without me. I had paid lawyers. I had paid accountants. I had paid consultants whose whole job was to make me less necessary. That cost me more than some houses I lived in when I was younger. Best money I ever spent. Worst feeling I didn't expect. The realization came slowly. I understood that I had retired from work, but I hadn't retired from needing to matter. Those are not the same thing. So I want to go through 5 things I've noticed since the pushing stopped. Things I wish someone had told me before I acted like I was above needing to hear them. This isn't about money advice. I'm not your financial advisor. I'm not anyone's financial advisor. It's about the quiet side, the part where the calendar opens up and something inside you doesn't know how to open with it. The first thing I noticed was that free time can feel like an accusation. That sounds ridiculous, I know. A man complains he doesn't have time for 30 years, then complains when he finally gets some. There's a reason Barbara keeps me humble. The first few months, I treated empty space like a mistake in the schedule. I'd wake up early because my body didn't know another setting. I would shave, get dressed, check messages, make coffee. Then I would sit at the desk in my study like an actor waiting for his scene. Nothing happened. The phone didn't ring the way it used to. The urgent emails were less urgent. The decisions went to other people, which was the whole point. But the point doesn't always feel good when it arrives. I remember one Monday morning. It was 7:40. I had already read the same news twice. I had answered 3 emails that didn't need answering. Then I called the office. "Just checking in," I said. You know what that means. It means I wanted someone to need me. The man running operations now said everything was fine. He was kind about it, too kind. He said, "Alan, we've got it." That should have made me proud. And part of me was proud. Another part of me wanted to say, "Are you sure? Maybe there's something only I can fix." There wasn't. So I hung up and stared at the phone like it had betrayed me. Here's the thing. When your days are full for decades, you don't notice how much identity is hiding inside inconvenience. The delayed flight, the client who changes his mind, the supplier who doesn't answer, the guy who says the check is coming. All of that made me feel alive because it gave me something to push against. Then retirement removed the wall, and I almost fell forward. I don't fully understand why struggle can feel safer than peace, but it can. Maybe because struggle gives you instructions. Peace asks better questions. And I didn't like the questions. The second thing I noticed was that money makes retirement easier, but it doesn't make it simple. I know how that sounds coming from me, a comfortable man telling you money isn't everything. People roll their eyes. I would roll my eyes too. So let me say it carefully. Money matters. Of course it does. I've been broke, real broke. I remember counting what was left after rent. I remember Barbara stretching food in ways that made me ashamed and grateful at the same time. So no, I'm not going to sit here and tell you money doesn't matter. It matters. But when the bills are handled, the human problems don't leave. They get quieter. Sometimes that makes them harder to see. When I was building, money was a scoreboard. Not the only one, but a big one. I knew if the month was good. I knew if the quarter was strong. I knew who owed us money and who was avoiding my call. Numbers were clean. Life was not. After retirement, the numbers got less interesting. We had what we needed. The house was fine, the cars were fine, travel was fine. Medicare, insurance, taxes, all the grown-up things had a place. And still I found myself walking around with a feeling I couldn't put on a spreadsheet. That bothered me. Because I trust spreadsheets more than feelings. That's not a compliment, that's a confession. One afternoon, Barbara and I were having lunch outside. Beautiful day, blue sky, the kind of Florida day people up north imagine while shoveling snow. I was irritated about something small. I don't even remember what. Barbara said, "Do you know what your problem is?" That's always a dangerous opening. I said, "I'm sure you're going to tell me." She said, "You thought money would buy peace. It bought options. Peace is different." I didn't answer. Partly because she was right. Partly because the waiter came over and I was saved by a salad. But I kept thinking about it. Options are wonderful. I don't take them lightly. I know what it means to have none. But options can become another kind of noise. Where should we go? What should we do? Who should we see? What should we buy? What should we fix? What should we leave alone? When everything is possible, you still have to decide what matters. That was new for me. For years, the business decided what mattered. The urgent thing mattered. The person paying mattered. The deadline mattered. Retirement took away the noise, then asked me to hear myself. That's when I figured out I had been mistaking movement for meaning. They are cousins. They are not twins. The third thing I noticed was that marriage changes when the work leaves the room. Nobody warned me about that. Barbara and I have been married 41 years. That number still surprises me. It probably surprises her more. We survived broke years. We survived good years. We survived my confidence, which was sometimes larger than my judgment. I missed dinners. I missed little things that weren't little. I chose the deal over the table more than once. I'm not proud of that. For a long time, the business was like a third person in our marriage. Not a mistress, not exactly. More like a loud relative who never left. Even when I was home, it was there. The phone on the counter, the call I had to take, the thing that might happen, the problem 3 states away. Then retirement walked in and removed that third person. You'd think that would make everything easier. It didn't at first, because suddenly Barbara and I could hear each other more clearly, and hearing clearly is not always comfortable. I was in the kitchen one morning, reorganizing a drawer that had never asked for my help. I had opinions about where the spatulas should go. That should tell you how lost I was. Barbara watched me for maybe 30 seconds. Then she said, "You've been home all day for 3 months, and now you're management?" I said, "I'm just trying to help." She said, "No, you're trying to be in charge of a drawer." That's marriage. 41 years and she can still hit a target from across the room. She wasn't being cruel. She was naming the thing. I had lost authority in one place and was trying to borrow it from another. A kitchen drawer. Imagine that. Self-made man. Built from nothing. Negotiated with men who could ruin a week with one phone call. Defeated by spatulas. That's humbling, also accurate. We had to learn a different rhythm, not romantic, not dramatic, just daily. I had to stop entering every room like it was waiting for my decision. Barbara had to tell me when I was doing it. Sometimes she told me gently, sometimes she used the voice. Retirement didn't create new marriage problems. It exposed the ones work had been covering. And some of those weren't problems. They were habits. Old survival habits. Mine was control. Barbara's was letting me run until I got tired enough to listen. We both had work to do there. I still don't get it right. The fourth thing I noticed was that adult children don't automatically know what to do with a retired father. This one surprised me. Daniel is on the West Coast. He works in tech. I still don't fully understand what he does. He explained it once using the word platform 7 times. And I nodded like a man at a foreign film. Rachel lives nearby. She's closer to Barbara. I know that. It doesn't offend me the way it might have when I was younger. It just tells the truth. When I step back from the business, I imagine more family time, more dinners, more calls, more ordinary presence. But family doesn't expand just because your calendar does. They had built lives around my absence. That sentence hurts a little. It's also true. For years, I was the father who loved them, provided for them, showed up for the big things, and missed too many small ones. Then I retired and thought, not in words maybe, but somewhere inside me, all right, I'm available now. Beautiful. Also unfair. One Tuesday, I called Daniel in the middle of his workday. I had nothing urgent. I just wanted to talk. He answered, but I could hear typing. I said, "You're busy." He said, "A little, Dad." I should have let him go. Instead, I made a joke about being too important for his old man. Bad joke. Defensive joke. He went quiet. Then he said, "Dad, I love talking to you. I just can't do it whenever you're bored." There it was. Not cruel. Clean. I was embarrassed. Not angry. Embarrassed. Because he was right. I wasn't calling from connection. I was calling from vacancy. There's a difference. A few days later, I told Barbara. She didn't rescue me. She said, "Good for him." That's her mothering style. Loving. Terrifying. So I had to learn to ask better. Do you have 20 minutes this week? That works better than dropping into someone's day like you're still running dispatch. With Rachel, it was different. She would invite us over, but I had to learn not to arrive with the old father energy. the fixer, the checker, the man who asks about the roof, the school, the car, the insurance, the contractor. All useful, all exhausting. One evening, Eli asked me to build something with him, some little plastic set with instructions printed by people who hate grandfathers. I kept trying to make it efficient. Eli looked at me and said, "Grandpa, it's not a race." 10 years old. There goes another consultant I didn't hire. That's when I figured out legacy is not what you announce. It's what people feel when you walk into the room. I want my kids and grandkids to feel steadier when I arrive. Not inspected. I'm working on that. The fifth thing I noticed was that the quiet isn't empty once you stop treating it like an enemy. This took the longest. At first, I filled every gap: lunches, calls, errands, small improvements around the house that nobody requested. I even considered golf more seriously than any man with my swing should. My swing is not a swing. It's a legal matter. But I kept moving because stillness felt like a trap. Then one morning I was sitting outside with coffee, early, before the heat got rude. Barbara was still inside. The house was quiet, no phone in my hand, no laptop, no performance. Just me, the air, and a bird making a noise like it had complaints. I had the urge to go check something. Then I didn't. That was it. Not a revelation, not a breakthrough. Just one small refusal to run from the moment. I sat there for maybe 12 minutes. I know it was 12 because I checked later. I'm still me. But those 12 minutes felt different. At first they felt useless. Then they felt honest. I started thinking about my father, Elliot Rosen. He came here young, built a modest life, never talked much about money, treated a dollar like it had walked a long road to reach him. My father used to say, "A man who keeps his word sleeps better than a man who keeps score." I heard that every Friday night in one form or another. I didn't always live it. But sitting there, retired, with no score to chase that morning, I understood it better. Maybe quiet gives old sentences room to return. Maybe that's one of its gifts. I don't want to oversell this. I still get restless. I still check my phone too much. I still create problems for myself and then call them projects. But something shifted when I stopped demanding that every hour prove my value. Some hours are just hours. You sit with your wife. You call your son at a time you agreed on. You let your granddaughter argue about dessert. You let the business run without sticking your hands into the machine. You make peace with not being central every minute. That one is hard. It sounds noble until you're the man being moved from the center. Then it feels like loss. But slowly, if you're willing to be a little uncomfortable, it starts to feel like room. Room to be a husband without being distracted. Room to be a father without performing importance. Room to be a grandfather who does not turn plastic blocks into a management exercise. Room to ask what kind of man is left when the pushing stops. I don't have a perfect answer. I'm not sure I trust men who have perfect answers. What I have is a quieter life than the one I built. Some days I like it. Some days I still fight it. But I'm starting to see that quiet doesn't mean useless. It may mean I'm finally available for things that don't shout. I'm not going to pretend this all resolved itself. There are mornings when I still miss being needed in the old way. There are afternoons when the house feels too still. There are moments when I walk past my desk and feel the old pull. But then Barbara says something from the other room, or one of the kids calls, or Maya corrects me about a rule she invented 5 seconds earlier. And I remember I'm still here, not in charge of everything. Here. That has to be enough for now. I say that because I used to think enough was a weak word. Enough sounded like settling. It sounded like losing appetite. It sounded like the thing people said when they couldn't get more. I'm not so sure anymore. Maybe enough is not the small word I thought it was. Maybe it's a discipline. Maybe it's a door you only notice after you've spent enough years trying to kick down every other one. Barbara would say, "I'm making it too complicated." She'd say, "Alan, enough means enough," and she'd be right. But some of us need 40 years and a few gray hairs to understand one sentence. So I'm practicing that now. Not perfectly, not gracefully. Some mornings I still reach for the old scoreboard before I reach for my coffee. but less than before. That's something. I never thought slowing down would require this much nerve. Turns out anybody can stay busy. Busy will take whoever volunteers. Quiet asks for a different kind of courage. If any of this landed for you, leave a comment. Tell me the one quiet part of retirement you didn't expect. Not the money part, unless that's the real answer. I mean the part inside the day. The empty morning. The strange marriage rhythm. The adult children with full lives. The feeling that the world kept moving without asking if you were ready. I read those comments more than you might think. Sometimes Barbara reads them too. Then she tells me which ones I should have understood faster. She's usually right. And if you're not retired yet, but you're close, I'd like to hear what part you're wondering about. Not the brochure version. The real question you don't always say out loud. Because I think we do each other a favor when we talk plainly. Money matters, health matters, plans matter, but the quiet matters too. And if you're not ready for it, it can make a very good life feel strangely unfamiliar. All right, take care of yourself.